I reached a point where I didn't really know where to go next. I knew I either needed significant investment to take the brand further or going into retail stores, physical stores. And I knew that was what was next for the brand. I kind of reflected and I was like, do I want to be the chief exec of a makeup brand that is in retail stores across the country? All of these things. Do I want to be doing that at 25?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
This month's sponsor is Triple Whale. Supercharge your ad campaigns with their revolutionary analytics platform, because better data means better campaigns. If you're running any type of paid media, then you need to be using Triple Whale. Find out more at trytriplewhale.com. Hello and welcome to the DTC Deep Dive. Another week, another guest, and today we're speaking with Clodagh, who is the former creator and owner of Sample Beauty. She's now working for Hairburst, doing some incredible stuff. She's an old friend of mine, and it's been so great to catch up with her. We talk everything from exiting your business, what it's like to create a makeup palette from scratch, and how Sample Beauty started when she was a maths teacher. Welcome to the DTC Deep Dive, Clodagh. How are you doing? It's good to see you again.
I know, reunited.
Me and Clodagh, to give you a bit of context, we've worked together in the past for some of the brands that you've worked for. We're going to be talking about Sample Beauty today, which was the makeup brand which you started and eventually exited. We're going to be talking all about that. We first met when we did some work for Sample Beauty. And then you left the company and you've been all over the place doing some amazing stuff. So it's really great to sit down and have a business conversation. It's always fun to chat to you about marketing and business.
Oh, for sure. My favorite topic.
Yeah, 100%. So before we kick off, there's probably some people listening that don't know who you are, don't know who Sample Beauty are. So give us a rundown. Who are you? A little bit overview of your journey, where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Clodagh, and my background is actually in maths. So I did a degree in maths, was always really, really good at maths in school, and I just loved it. And it was kind of the only topic I loved. So I ended up doing a degree in maths and stats. And then towards the end of my degree, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I did some kind of placement work in schools as a part of my degree. So I decided to do my PGC to become a maths teacher, and that's what I did. So I became a maths teacher. And I did that for around 18 months. But while I was teaching, I had an idea for a business, which was to sell samples of cosmetic products, hence why it's called Sample Beauty. And it was essentially an affiliate model business based all around email marketing. So we would sell samples of makeup that brands would provide us with for free, and we would sell them for a really, really tiny amount. I'm talking like 15p, 20p for a sample.
Oh, okay.
So the margins there were tiny, right? But the beauty of the brand then was the other side. So once someone has received the sample, we then had affiliate partnerships with all of these brands, and then we would upsell the full size product on CRM, and then obviously gain commission from that. So it was a very kind of cold business, if you get what I mean. It was like it was a machine, and it lacked brand. And that did really well for about 6 months. But then I started really getting into makeup, and I was like, I want to do eyeshadow. And a brand called Morphe was really taking off. And they always selling out. So I was like, right, we'll sell dupes of them. So then they literally look almost exactly the same, except obviously they were all Sample Beauty branded. And we started selling those. And the second I started selling those and stopped the whole CRM samples kind of process, the business just like skyrocketed. And it reached a point where I had to leave teaching because I physically couldn't do both.
Whoa.
And I was only 21 at the time. So I was literally like, I was trying to live my 20s at the same time.
Yeah.
So I had to compromise that side of my life in order to be a teacher and in order to run a business at the same time. So I just ultimately had to make a decision, and that decision was to leave. And I left teaching, and the second I left teaching, it just grew even more, because my time was fully focused on it, and I was healthier, I was in a better mindset, all of those things, and the business just took off. So that's kind of what Sample Beauty became. And then once I had really good kind of process with cash flow, and I had some extra spare cash in the business. That's when I started developing products myself then. And I would say that's probably when Sample Beauty was like truly born, as cliche as that sounds, but it's true. My creativity was like being pumped into the product, and we were launching products that no one else had. And it just really gave the brand an identity rather than being a brand that duped other brands. And I just didn't want to do that. It was like I've said before, when I've had conversations before, I felt like I was capitalizing on another woman's success.
Mm.
Because Linda, who owned Morphe, she smashed it, right? She did it by herself. And I was kind of like piggybacking on that. And that's fine to kind of give the business a head start, but it's not a long-term plan for a brand. You can't keep doing that. You need to have your own, and you need to be your own. And that's where your brand is truly born then. And that's exactly what happened. So we got rid of all the dupes and just started from scratch and launched only products that I designed. And then after that, then obviously it was amazing. It was amazing.
So what was that like, going from being, you know, I mean, a pretty stable, normal job, as most people would say, being a teacher, like probably the most, you know, secure job that you could get, suddenly going, you know what, I'm gonna, like, this is taking off too much. Like, what was that turning point for you? Was it like the amount of sales coming in? Was it just a time thing of like, what was that deciding factor of I need to go full time?
I would say it was more my health, to be honest. And I know that sounds like quite intense, but I was hardly sleeping. So to put it into perspective, I was living in Liverpool. The school that I taught in was in Manchester. So I was leaving at 5:45 every morning, roundabout, driving all the way to Manchester, to the north of Manchester, teaching all day, coming home by about 7 o'clock, marking and planning until about 10, 11. And that is the life of a teacher, right? People think the teachers have got it easy.
Yeah.
It is without a doubt the most challenging job I've ever had, both on my health, my well-being, kind of the ups and downs of it. It's just a really, really hard job. And it is rewarding, but obviously it's not rewarding in salary. I can tell you that straight. It's not at all. And I reached a point then, so I was staying up until 11 doing schoolwork, and then I'd have to sit and pack orders until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and get up at 5. I was literally surviving on 2, 3 hours sleep a night, 5 days a week. And then my Saturdays and Sundays, I would just spend sleeping and then doing a bit of Sample Beauty, sleeping and just try and catch up. But I reached a point where my health was just awful. I was exhausted all the time. I was tiny. I lost loads of weight. I was just really, I reached a point where I was like, it isn't worth doing both. And I am going to struggle potentially when I leave teaching financially, but I'll only be able to drive the business to where it needs to go if I'm healthy and I've got the energy to do it. And that's essentially what I came to. But obviously Sample Beauty was in a really good place for me to be able to afford to leave. And I could pay myself a salary, luckily. But it was more kind of like, it was scary as well, leaving a secure job where I've got a salary without a doubt every single month. But I did have it in the back of my mind, I could always become a teacher again. I could always become a teacher again. I could go back and work in another school and it'd be okay. Whereas I couldn't risk leaving Sample Beauty and Sample Beauty closing, and then what? I'm just miserable being a teacher, you know? So yeah, it was more my health, to be honest.
Yeah. And then you said, like, as you were, so were you interested in makeup, like, before you started Sample Beauty, or was it something that you just started this selling these samples and then it was like, oh, actually I kind of enjoy this?
Yeah, I was super passionate about makeup and skincare anyway, and I was a bit of a hoarder when it came to makeup and makeup collections. Like, if I liked one lipstick from a brand that they've launched, I would buy every color, not to use it, but to have it. And I displayed it in my bedroom nicely and all of those things. And it was like, you know, I just enjoyed it. It was like a little hobby for me. And then I did become really passionate about eyeshadow, and I was always playing with eyeshadow and just sitting in my room on an evening, not going to go anywhere, but I would just put eyeshadow on and just kind of like, it was like a creative output for me, which I didn't really realize that I had, because I've got like obviously a super maths brain.
Yeah.
I was never ever told in school that I was a creative person, but it wasn't until I started playing with makeup that I really realized, you know what, this is like my creative output, and I am creative. Yeah, so I just really enjoyed eyeshadow, to be honest, which is how I came up with the idea anyway, of Sample Beauty.
So making those dupes at first, was that like, what's the legality of doing that? Because that seems sketchy territory, to basically copy someone else's product and put your name on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's, you know, it is a risky territory. You know, you've got brands like Makeup Revolution and that push the boundaries with it every day, right? But that's what they built their brand on. It does work, but you just have to be really careful. But with regards to the products I was duping, their packaging was all black. The color story inside wasn't super unique, so there wasn't any kind of like intellectual property to kind of worry about, because the packaging was so basic. So it was kind of easy to do. And then loads of brands started doing it after I started doing it. But I think I gained kind of the initial traction in the UK market for doing it. And then other brands started doing it, and then it started diluting a little bit then. So I definitely made the right decision switching to get rid of all of those and starting from scratch designing products. And that's how you know when your brand is successful, is when you have other brands duping your product. And I was like, that's the point that I want to get to one day, is where people are copying my product, you know?
What was it like then designing your own palette? So you went from basically kind of being given the ideas for a palette because you were just duping another one, to then being like, no, we're going to do this all ourselves. I'm going to do all this. Like, where do you even start in terms of like making a palette? Just have an idea, like, yeah, I want to make some blue shades, I want to make some red shades.
Like, it is a very creative process, but it's also strategic. So obviously you've got to look at market trends and all of that. You have to understand what consumers want, what color stories are people using right now or are going to be using in the next 6 months. Because I could design a product and get it to market in about 3 months' time. Yeah, I could be quite quick with it. But to give you an example, so I designed a eyeshadow palette called the Blooming Lovely palette, and it's one of the most recent that they launched. And the inspiration from that was actually during lockdown, the first lockdown, where it got really intense. You weren't really allowed to leave the house unless you were exercising, all of that kind of
crazy
stuff.
Times.
Yeah, and I was living in London at the time. I'd been out of the house in about 3 or 4 days. So I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. I'll go down to Buckingham Palace, walk around, have a nice time. And I was walking down and I got to the palace and they just planted their new garden. And the colours were just like, it was like breathtaking, the colours that they had. So I took a picture of it and I was like, I want to do a palette that makes me feel how this garden made me feel. I know that sounds really like, it doesn't sound cheesy. Yeah, so I went home, opened up my iPad, and then started color picking from the flowers that I took the picture of, and then started because I draw out the palette like as an actual drawing with the colors, and I did that, moved all the colors around, and I was like, this is it, like it looks beautiful. And then that's when I create a digital mock-up then. So I always create like a 3D super realistic mock-up of the product from that concept. And then that's when we push it through to the manufacturer then. So that's kind of an example how I would create a product. And it was kind of the same back then. I would just have like an itch on a concept, whether it be, you know, an ultra bright rainbow palette or whatever. But the strategic side comes in when you're organizing the colors. Because at the end of the day, with eyeshadow, you have to, when you're marketing it, it's the color story that sells it, right? You cannot have like ultra blendable, long wearing, all of that. But what makes people buy it is how it looks. So it has to look beautiful, and the colors have to be organized in a way that creates that behavior in a person in order to buy it. So that's kind of the more strategic side then. But with regards to creativity, it's more just an idea that I have and then I just run with it, or something triggers it.
This week's edition of the DTC Deep Dive is brought to you by Plastique. If you're a DTC brand or wholesaler, then cash flow is probably your top concern. Well, Plastique can help. Plastique is a business payment tool that unlocks your working capital by helping you pay your biggest expenses by credit card. Anything from inventory to marketing spend can be paid on by credit card, allowing you to float cash up to 100 days. Brands like Obvi, Universal Standard and Sunbasket use Plastique as a short-term financing tool to increase credit and pay vendors all over the world. Most suppliers don't accept credit card, but Plastique lets you pay by credit card and sends the payment to your supplier however they would prefer. Check out Plastique for yourself at plastique.com. That's PLASTIQ.com and see how Plastique can fuel your cash flow. When you were kind of in the heat of making these new palettes, you were a solo founder. You have been this whole time, which, you know, I'm not a solo founder. I have a co-founder, so thankfully, you know, I can relieve some of the stress on him, but it's still a really difficult thing. Like, you know, I know from, you know, talking to you that it was very difficult being, you know, what do you think? Do you think that's an experience that you wouldn't change, or do you think if you could go back and do it again, you'd maybe get a co-founder, or you'd bring in more support to make it easier?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I definitely wish a little bit earlier on that I seeked help, especially when it came to the marketing side, like performance marketing. At that time I found it really challenging to commit to learning about all those different channels. And I just solely focused on the organic channels. So socials and CRM, they were like my two winners, right? And I found it really hard then to do the paid side. So yeah, I wish I got help earlier on, but I didn't. And on reflection, that makes me really proud because I did it by myself and the credit is to me. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
If I ever did it again, I would not do it by myself. I would get at least one co-founder, at least. Yeah.
So was that obviously you exited the business after how many years were you doing it for yourself?
5 years.
So you exited the business after 5 years. Was one of the decisions to do that just that you just had enough of doing everything yourself and you just wanted to just see the brand succeed in someone else's hands?
Yeah, I reached a point where I didn't really know where to go next. I knew I either needed significant investment to take the brand further, with regards to obviously investment into marketing or whatever, or going into retail stores, physical stores. And I knew that was what was next for the brand. I kind of reflected and I was like, I'm, 25. I was 25 at the time. Do I want to be the chief exec of a makeup brand that is in retail stores across the country, is growing? I've got pressure from investors, all of these things. Do I want to be doing that at 25?
Yeah.
And the answer is no, I don't. I want to go on holiday. Because I think I went on one holiday in 5 years. I couldn't leave.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, I couldn't leave because I had a small team, and I'm grateful for them because they were the reason why I was able to go on that one holiday that I went on. But I didn't have like a life, and I wasn't living my 20s and having fun. All my friends were going out having fun. I couldn't, because I didn't have the time. And people say make the time, but you can't. Yeah. Because there's things you have to just get done. I was like, either that or I sell it. And it didn't take me very long to make that decision. It took me about a week. And I did go back and forth. I was like, oh no, I don't want to leave. I do want to leave. I don't want to leave. And but when I really reflected on it, I was like, no. They always say the second business that you start is better. This was just kind of like a practice run. And you could give this business to another brand who could really take it to the next level. And that's what I decided to do. That's
amazing. I mean, and then that has obviously allowed you to go on and work for other places. It's weird because you've gone the opposite direction to most people go, right? They work for a big brand they learn everything they need to, and then they're like, you know what, I can do this better myself. And then they go off and they start their own thing. Whereas you've gone, all right, I've done my own thing. I achieved a lot. I'm proud of myself. I exited the business. Happy days. And then you've gone, all right, now I'm going to work in another position as an employee, essentially. So now, to fill people in, you work at Hairburst.
Yes.
What was that transition like? Because I know, thinking in my head, from someone that manages a team and is the boss, I guess, I couldn't imagine going back to working on someone else's passion that isn't mine. That seems such a hard thing to do. What was that transition like?
I've had a couple of roles since Sample Beauty, and the first couple obviously didn't last very long from my side, because going from being an entrepreneur, working for yourself, you know, like you said, having a team, kind of having the freedom of running your own brand. It's your vision, your product, everything is yours. You have to go, if you're going to get a job, you have to go somewhere where you fully have the same feeling about the product, same feeling about the brand. For example, I went to go and work at the Protein Works because I needed a break from the makeup industry, the beauty industry. I just needed to have a breather because I lost my passion for it. And for me to lose my passion in the beauty industry, I knew it was bad, and I knew I just needed a break. So I went to go and work at the Protein Works to gain some kind of performance marketing experience and kind of have that break that I needed. But ultimately, within 9 months, I really missed makeup and beauty, to be honest, beauty in general. Obviously, I'm really passionate about fitness now, but at the time at the Protein Works, I really struggled to kind of have that passion about the products that everyone else in the business had. Even though I still did my job, obviously to a high level, but I just didn't have that like fire and buzz in me. Whereas now at Hairburst, and I'm not just saying this to kind of, praise them, but I do mean this honestly. I enjoy working at Hairburst more than Sample Beauty.
Wow, that's a big deal.
And that's how you know it's the right thing, right? So that's how I know that I don't mind working for someone else, because I feel the same as I did when I ran Sample Beauty. But obviously I enjoy this more because it's a bigger brand. There's loads of opportunity. The products are incredible. We sell globally. We're in brick and mortar worldwide. So much opportunity. That's the only way that I can explain. It's just, it's the best business for me.
Yeah. Do you think that there's aspects of running your own business which have really aided you in working for someone else and taking a position elsewhere? Do you think that you'd be, obviously, like, separate from the skills that you learn, do you think you'd be as good at your job as you are now without that experience of Sample Beauty?
No way. Sample Beauty, in that 5 years, I probably gained what someone else would have in a normal career path of like 20 years. And I'm not joking about that, because you're forced to learn about channels that you haven't been exposed to in a previous role. Even if you started a job as like a digital marketing exec and you were across multiple channels, you would never be forced into the depth of the channel that I was forced into. And because you kind of strapped for cash, you can't just get freelancers to do this channel, this channel, this channel, or build a team. You're forced to learn it yourself. You never know how much to learn, right? So you start learning about a channel and then you go and work somewhere, which is what I experienced. And I was like, do you know what? I actually know a lot. And it's not until you go and work somewhere where you can actually apply everything you've learned. You can't kind of go somewhere and you can go somewhere, and apply everything you've learned. Whereas I couldn't, execute everything that I want to execute because all those things.
It is such a strange thing where, like, obviously we work with a lot of different brands and we have to learn about that industry when we end up working with them. There's so much useless information that I know about so many different industries that I never would have imagined I'd know, like running a content agency. Like we worked with multiple fitness brands. I'm not into fitness. However, I know what goes into a protein shake and all the stuff that goes with it. It's such a strange thing that you can hold a conversation with someone about all this random stuff just from having a business in a completely different niche. It's wild. So at Hairburst, what's your current role? What's your day-to-day looking like now?
So I joined Hairburst as head of innovation, where I was working on like a project level. So I would work on little different bits. And then kind of as I spent a few months there, my role kind of evolved as they kind of identified what my strengths were. And also my strengths are socials, brand, and CRM. So I'm there now as Chief Brand Officer, and they're my main channels that I work on. So brand, socials, and CRM, and obviously creative and content.
Yeah, what have been the best social channels so far? Because I feel like we're at a bit of a turning point at the moment in terms of, obviously there's TikTok, there's issues with Facebook and Instagram and all that, and kind of there's a bit of a turning point in social where people are for the first time in a long time changing where they spend their money and changing where their focus is. What's that been like for Hairburst from a social perspective?
I believe that you have to really understand every channel, and you shouldn't have a favorite, right? Every channel works in its own way, and people might think, oh, Instagram's not working, oh, Facebook's dead, Pinterest, no way. Let's put all of our focus into TikTok. But you have to understand who is going to use what platform. And obviously TikTok's the most popular right now, yeah. And I don't know if you know these stats, but on average in the UK, a person opens TikTok 19 times a day.
It's wild.
19 times. And that is crazy. That is, so it's the most popular channel, but you have to understand the value of your other channels. Because you've got different people on different channels behaving differently. And when it comes to that, your engagement behavior is different. Your purchase behavior is different. It changes by channel, but you have to have all of your social channels working in unison for the best output. And there are a lot of brands that are just on TikTok, and that's fine. But obviously, as an established brand, you have to value every single channel that you have.
Do you still have the itch to do your own thing, or has that vanished now?
I always have ideas for new brands, always. I have a little black book of all of my ideas that I've come across, whether I've been normally at the gym is where I get my most creative time when it comes to that. But I have so many ideas for brands, and maybe one day I could do it again. Right now, I don't want to. I would rather partner with people who want to do it as well, and we do it all together. And that's probably the only time that I would do something again. But right now, I'm extremely happy doing what I'm doing. Probably the happiest I've been since I've left university, to be honest.
Amazing. It's so great to hear. It's so, like, we've known each other from your Sample Beauty days, and I know about your personal struggles with Sample Beauty. I think that a lot of solo founders go through those stages where it just feels like you just want to give up and be like, you know what, I've had enough of this. And it's so great to see you come through and now working on something, super cool. Now, I know that, I don't know how much time you spend on paid social on a daily basis, but we ask all of our guests the same question to kind of finish up. If you could only choose one social media platform to advertise on for the next 5 years, what would that be and why?
It obviously would have to be TikTok.
Every single person has said TikTok, and I understand why. I get why, but then we've had a few people say Google, because it's like the most trustworthy, unchanged advertising platform.
Yeah, but ultimately, every single channel has control over us when it comes to paid. We can kind of control it as much as we want to with regards to content and optimization and all of those things. But at the end of the day, they've got the reins on it. And Google's a pretty tricky channel. There's a lot of different areas in it, isn't there? And obviously they're making lots of changes all the time. So Google's amazing. Obviously everyone uses it. But I would say, when it comes to new customer acquisition, for example, and different metrics, I think TikTok's kind of the winner. And obviously Google's not creative, right? Obviously you've got YouTube ads and that, but it's not creative. It's cold, descriptive. And if you're a brand, obviously every brand is creative, right? When it comes to branding and whatever, and that needs to be showcased. So yeah, I would say TikTok for sure.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, Chloe. As always, great to chat. Good luck in everything you're doing so far. Hopefully one day we'll see another Chloe creation making its way. But
I'm sure you will one day. I'm sure you will.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you as well.
And that's it for the DTC Deep Dive this week. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Make sure that you hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening or watching us on. In fact, did you know that you can watch us on YouTube? Yes, just search the DTC Deep Dive. It's all there for you. Have a great week ahead, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.